Yo, yesterday, President Donald Trump dropped 2 Bitcoin bombshells and an exclusive interview we're about to play for you guys suggesting that maybe Donald Trump is forcing China to respond to America's Bitcoin plan. But it wasn't just Trump turning up the heat on the global Bitcoin arms race this weekend. Crypto czar David Sachs also made some interesting comments about Bitcoin. But before we get there, let's play the clip of President Trump, and then we'll talk about it. Let's check it out.
I want crypto. I think crypto is important because if we don't do it, China's going to. And it's new. It's very popular. It's very hot. If you look at the market, when the market went down, that stayed much stronger than other aspects of the market. But I want crypto because a lot of people, millions of people want it. I don't know if you know that Biden went after it violently, and then before the election, he changed his tune entirely. His head of the SEC, everybody changed their tune. You know why? Because there were hundreds of millions of people that are participating.
All right, everybody, we are back. And of course, I'm joined with my legendary co-host, who's always optimistic, Optimus Field. I mean, the president's saying the quiet part out loud. This is what Max Kaiser calls the global hash war. It is the game theory coming into place. And you might feel a certain way about Bitcoin from an ideological perspective. You might not like it. You might be Christine Lagarde. You might be a central banker, and you might be coming up with every excuse that you can come up with to basically say that Bitcoin is a danger to humanity. But the reality is that the game theory, the incentives are there. And again, every single country around the world is incentivized to adopt Bitcoin because the countries that do adopt Bitcoin are going to have a strategic advantage. They're going to get ahead. They're going to be able to accumulate the scarcest asset the world has ever seen. Do you think it's a coincidence that the first country that made Bitcoin legal tender happens to be the safest country in the Americas? And of course, I'm talking about El Salvador. That is not a coincidence. So I think President Trump is using common sense. This is what he ran on. This is what he promised the Bitcoin voting demographic in Nashville. And again, he's coming through with what he promised. And, with the executive orders of the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, this is what he's saying. Another funny part about that interview, too, was the interviewee was giving him heat about the Trump coin, which, of course, you guys know we're Bitcoiners. We're not a big fan of altcoins here on Simply Bitcoin. But it was just so funny because she didn't even have the numbers ready. She was like, yeah, it went up 58%. Do you have any? And he's like, look, why do you guys write a story that people actually care about? So I found that hilarious. Anyways, here's the other clip of the so-called White House crypto czar, David Sachs, who is going to be talking at the Vegas conference that's coming up in basically at the end of the month. So let's check out this clip, and then me and Opti are going to be having a discussion. Let's check it out.
We did repeal Biden's exec order on AI, which was 100 pages of unnecessary regulation on AI. We've ended the war on crypto. And I think we're trying to stop the regulatory capture that benefits large incumbents. So you have all these things, and there's been other things that have been done on the economy as well. But I do think that this sets us up for a Trump boom in the future. It's just that a lot of these.
I 100% agree. And again, the media onslaught does not stop. It's pretty crazy because, it was one-sided. Right? Me and Opti were covering this, the attacks from the Wall Street Journal, the attacks from the New York Times, which coincidentally, I'm not saying that one is related to the other. All of a sudden, the New York Times stopped writing about Bitcoin since that whole USAID thing came out. Isn't that a coincidence? Anyways, but it seems like all of legacy media hasn't stopped. The Guardian still hasn't gotten the memo. Check out this headline, which I think is absolutely hilarious. How Trump's love for crypto threatens U.S. residents' peace. Quotes, I just want quiet. And I think they're talking about, of course, Bitcoin miners. First came the dogs balding, leathery pink patches on otherwise glossy fur coats. The veterinarian told it was a genetic, but it was long before one of the hairless puppies began stealing blankets to burrow beneath furniture and hide for long stretches. Around the same time, in the summer of 2022, she first heard the noise, a deep mechanical howl, the sound of freedom, as me and Opti like to call it, that becomes shrill closer to the facility. Copperhaven didn't know it then, but Bitcoin miners had come to town. Less than a mile away from her home, East Texas, a cryptocurrency mining facility was rumbling to life. The hum has since become the soundtrack to life for hundreds of residents in the small city of Granbury, with a population of 12,600. It echoes across the agricultural land and forests, chasing away deer. It seeps into walls, vibrating bedrooms and dinner tables. Copperhaven's neighbor imagines that it is what standing on the edge of Niagara Falls might sound like. Copperhaven says it sounds like a jet engine is forever stationed by. I mean, like, this is just ridiculous. I mean, the media coverage of this is so blatantly biased and obvious against Bitcoin. And like it's relentless. And that whole interview, by the way, I highly recommend you guys watching it. It was just like a bunch of gotcha questions after gotcha questions after gotcha questions. And exactly, someone in the chat says the beautiful sound. I call it the sound of freedom. You plug in an S9 or an S19, nothing in the world makes that sound. It sounds absolutely beautiful. It's like, and I love how that article used like, oh, it scares away the deers. It sounds like a jet engine. Like, they can no longer say that it emits CO2 emissions. So now it's about the sounds, right? So like these media outlets are like, this is propaganda, right? Whether it's, traditional TV interviews or just the legacy written media, it's always negative. It's crazy. And it always leans to one side, which is anti-Bitcoin, anti-freedom, anti-individualism. And it's clear for the world to see. And you know what's really interesting too, is that none of these legacy media outlets did their jobs last year when our industry was under attack, when Operation Choke Point 2.0 was in full force, when Caitlin Long's bank was denied a federal banking charter, when there was a proposed 30% Bitcoin mining tax, when essentially the Samurai Wallet guys got arrested, when CZ got arrested, when Arthur Hayes got arrested. None of that was covered from a positive light. It was always negative. It was always, they tried to associate the CZ arrest to terrorism, but it was never talked about. Like, the benefits of Bitcoin were never talked about. The benefits, the issue that Bitcoin solves, which is I would say the number one threat to human prosperity, which is inflation. None of that is talked about. It's always talked about like Bitcoin is going to boil the oceans, Bitcoin is bad, but they never talk about the alternative. And so what I'm saying is that we're winning. What I'm saying is that these same legacy media outlets went after El Salvador savagely with the same type of, picking and choosing type of narrative description. But if you actually look at the facts, Bitcoin helps people save. That's the reality of it. I'm not talking about the altcoins, but if you save and earn in Bitcoin, your life gets progressively cheaper despite what the government's monetary policy is. And regardless of Nayib Bukele's record of providing safety and security for the citizens of El Salvador, despite having a 96% approval rating, this same media attacks him relentlessly, just like they attack President Trump. When the media is not neutral and fair and truthful, it's no longer media. That is propaganda. And I think over the last 5 to 10 years, what we've discovered is that a lot of the legacy media is just that. It's like a propaganda machine. right? So anyways, of course, I'm here joined with my legendary co-host, who's always optimistic, Optimus Fields. Opti, what do you think about that, bro? That Guardian article that I had a really hard time reading. Sorry, guys, it's Monday. They're using some big words. Dude, that was crazy. It was like, dude, like Trump, he's threatening your peace and quiet. And of course, the hostility coming out of that so-called reporter that's supposed to be, fair and neutral is absolutely crazy. But again, the signal there, despite them trying to make it seem like a hit piece, is that Donald Trump understands the reality. He understands that if the United States doesn't take the dominant position when it comes to Bitcoin, China is going to come in and swoop in. That is absolute common sense. Doesn't take rocket scientists to figure this out. And that's what Max Kaiser calls the global hash wars. Anyways, Opti, what's your take, brother?
Well, I love that article because it really just shows that the running out of FUD lines, like the FUD is no longer working how it used to work. Remember, forever it was like they're boiling the oceans, they're going to take all the electricity of the world. Bitcoin might, go to zero. Now they're like, the miners are too loud. It's like it's just getting worse. That article is ridiculous. And hey, look, miners are pretty loud. Like I'll give them that. But like, I don't think that this is like a really good FUD piece here, that should be the reason why you shouldn't, plug in miners. It's like there's two alternatives. You either use a money that can get inflated away, or you use something that they can't, that is, cryptographically backed by, these computers or whatever Saylor always says. But I do want to get back to kind of the Trump clip and the David Sachs clip. The big takeaways, I think, are, he does kind of use China as like the big boogeyman. And I'm not like the biggest fan of that claim here, but that is kind of part of, as Nico would always say, the Overton window. As, political discourse, it's always like, oh, if we don't do this, China is going to do it. And, or, the other one, like it's, Russia or something like that. But I think the point remains the same. And we are seeing this play out in real time. Like the global game theory is taking off. And we are seeing that China is doing backflips on their Bitcoin stance. They're talking about it. They're deliberating over it. They have the two countries, one policy kind of playbook. We know Hong Kong's getting into Bitcoin, or at least, dropping their ETFs, etc. So like there is some credence to this idea that if the U.S. doesn't embrace it as quickly as we would like, they will be left behind. And that's obviously bad for the U.S. economic standing in the world, because we think Bitcoin's going to take over. So that point is I would say valid. Now, the more interesting point to me is, Trump basically said, if you read between the lines, like the decoupling that we saw the last couple of weeks is one of the most important things we're seeing play out in real time. As all markets are kind of in this wonky position right now, there's a lot of uncertainty. No one knows really what's going on with bond. We're seeing gold rip, equities and stocks are kind of going down. People are looking for alternatives. And the fact that Bitcoin is holding on as strong as it is, it basically pumped. It's kind of correcting a little bit right now. It's testing a resistance line. It does feel like by the end of this month, Bitcoin is going to rip. A lot of people have been parading this M2 global liquidity chart in Bitcoin, and it seems to be following it pretty good, even though the M2 global liquidity chart isn't updated, every week like the Bitcoin price. But it is one of these factors where people are seeing Bitcoin is becoming this neutral store of value that we all talk about. Like you can argue that Bitcoin already is that, and it's really just people's understanding of that playing out. That is what's happening. Bitcoin is, and everything else is kind of a reaction to what Bitcoin does, or rather, doesn't do, which is, of course, not debase. And then the last part, I found it really interesting. And again, I'm using Nico's cliches here on the show, but, elections have consequences. And as we see, Bitcoin is, and, maybe we can argue whether it is or not, but Bitcoin is a global and also a national movement here. And there's a lot of Bitcoin holders out there. And you could say that, the shitcoin holders are also Bitcoin holders, etc. But there is a mass movement here of people that are embracing Bitcoin. And hey, as we've been saying for a long time, if you want to maintain your position in politics, you can't fight Bitcoin. And I think this is part of one of those data points of just showing that Bitcoin is maturing. It's becoming, you can call it a legitimate asset class. It's becoming a legitimate neutral money around the world. and they have to bend the knee to Bitcoin. They have to embrace Bitcoin, as we always say. And as the meme goes, you know, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. And now we're seeing that these memes are literally coming out of the United States president's mouth. Obviously, he's, you know, Trumpifying these memes a little bit, but he's saying all the stuff we've been saying right now. Global game theory is playing out. That's funny. Yo, that is
Trump.
funny.
Trump talked about the decoupling. Do we have a Lisan al-Gaib? Do we have a Lisan al-Gaib, bro?
And then you know, double down on the fact that there's hundreds of millions of people that are holding Bitcoin. Like, this isn't just something that you can dig your head in the sand and be like, oh, this is insignificant. This is something that is starting to take the world by flame, and everyone is going to have to start to learn what Bitcoin is, how to use Bitcoin, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind. So look, we are growing up as you know, an industry, an asset, a money, whatever you want to call it. Bitcoin is entering that mainstream consciousness. We are entering the main stage, and I think it's only going to get more interesting here. And yes, all the power moves we're seeing from the political class and the huge financial institutions is all part of what we think is the growing trend, that there is a monetary reordering playing out, and people are trying to position themselves so that they can maintain their wealth. And of course, for us laymen, average everyday people, the way to actually save your wealth is literally by just buying Bitcoin, storing that Bitcoin, and holding it long term. That's like the only game. It goes back to the only way to win the game is to play the game, and that means get off zero, hold Bitcoin. Everything else is noise.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the absolute signal. But yeah, man, I can't believe we heard the president of the United States talk about, you know, the decoupling, man. Like, he's saying, like, you see in the stock market, Bitcoin actually performed better. And then, you know how we're winning again, it's the legacy media hit pieces that are coming out. They've ran out of excuses. It's no longer boiling the oceans. Apparently Trump is making things way too loud. And, you know, with Trump, you can't get your peace and quiet as long as Trump's there, because of the very, very evil, you know, energy intensive Bitcoin mining toasters. Leave my toasters alone. That's what I got to say. Anyways, Opti, this is like a walk in the park compared to what we lived through the last 2 years in terms of the legacy media narratives, man. Like, things are like, if we're getting to the point right now where that they're just complaining about the noise, I think we're making progress. Anyways, guys, before we start the show, I do want to give a extremely special shout out to our lead sponsor. Guys, this is by far the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack, bitcoinwell.com. The reason that it's the best place is that's the only on-ramp in the United States that is self-custody by default. What does that mean? That means that when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. And I have a special treat for you guys. If you go to bitcoinwell.com/simply, you get 3 opportunities to win up to 1 million sats just for signing up and making your first Bitcoin purchase. To get started, scan the QR code and we'll share the contest with you guys. So this is the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest. Every time you buy points on Bitcoin Well, every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn these points, and you could redeem those points towards prizes like a stamp seed plate, a Simply Bitcoin hoodie, a Cybertruck, an orange Cybertruck. So we're going to play it for you guys right now. Again, you get your Lightning wallets ready, because the prize might be 1 million sats, and we're going to toss a coin into the wishing well. Bam, bing, bam, boom. And today's prize is 389 sats. Again, just by going to bitcoinwell.com/simply for signing up, making your first purchase, you get 3 tosses into the wishing well, absolutely free. Every toss you win, and you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million sats with every toss. For higher net worth individuals looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more, check out their white glove service. You're going to have a dedicated account representative you can call or text every time you want to buy Bitcoin. Go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC today. All right, everybody, let's move on to numbers. We have tons to talk about. We're going to be right back in just a second. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on StampSeed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today.
All right, everybody, I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. We got 2,129 people watching live between YouTube and X. And shout out to the 330 of you guys watching live on Rumble. If you guys are enjoying the Rumble show, make sure to smash that like button. If you guys are enjoying the YouTube show, smash that like button. We're already at 115 likes. Help us break 200 likes by the time the show ends. You're listening to Simply Bitcoin. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 94,150. Block height 895,389 sats per dollar, 1,062. Market cap 1.87 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 8%. Percentage issued 94.57%, decline from all-time high. If you're buying Bitcoin right now, you're getting it at a 13.8% discount. Realized monetary inflation, my favorite stat out of all this, 0.84%. In the grand scheme of things, we're just getting started. Anyways, guys, this is Monday. We're going to start it off with some Monday hopium, some bullish news into the veins. I mean, Opti's here. Opti is powered by hopium. If you guys didn't know, I do want to give a shout out to this and caffeine and nicotine. I do want to give a shout out to Mexica Hodl. Appreciate the $20, bro. Making wearing men's underwear backwards great again. I appreciate the $20, dude. Thank you so much. Anyways, I do want to get to this thread by Jesse Myers. He says, Global Asset Landscape 2025 update. In 2023, there was $900 trillion of global wealth. Today, that number has grown to 1,000 trillion. What's the number above a trillion, Opti?
I think it's quadrillion.
Quadrillion. That sounds so weird.
I don't know. Big numbers are hard for me, so I don't know. But
you know, back in like the 80s and 90s, like the way that they would like describe a billion on TV, they would just say like 1,000 million instead of saying a billion. Because it was like,
so we're doing the same thing, just 1,000 trillion.
We're just doing the same thing because it's like unconceivable,
it's unheard of.
So what is it? Quadrillion, right?
I think it's quadrillion.
So quadrillion. So one quadrillion. That sounds effing crazy.
It literally sounds made up.
It sounds made up. But could you imagine in the 90s and 80s? It's probably the same thing. It's like, yeah, bro, just say, you know, 1,000 million, man. That sounds way better. A billion sounds effing crazy. Anyways, so back to it. Jesse Myers, and he's super famous for dropping this, by the way, like and so many people use this. James Lavish, we had him on the pod recently. He was talking about it, but essentially it's just a chart and it breaks down the amount of assets worldwide, right? So it breaks it down into categories. Bitcoin is at 2 trillion. Gold is at 22 trillion. So if Bitcoin reaches the market cap of gold, that's a 10x, right? I don't think it's an if. I think it's a matter of when. Then art, cars, and collectibles, 27 trillion. Equities, 135 trillion. Real estate, 370 trillion. Bonds, 318 trillion. And then money, 129 trillion. Total global asset value has grown at 6% per year over the last 2 years. Bitcoin has been the star performer. So it just breaks it down, right? So global asset growing at 6% and Bitcoin 0.4 in 2023 and 2025, it's 1.9. The CAGR is 120%. Gold 12 trillion in 2023 and 22. Wow, gold finally hit it out of the park. Peter Schiff must be throwing an effing party, bro. God damn. But still below Bitcoin, 35%. Art, cars, and collectibles, it went from 24 trillion to 27, grew 6%. Equities, it grew from 115 trillion to 135 trillion, 8%. Real estate, 330 trillion to 380 trillion, 7%. Bonds, 300 trillion to 318 trillion, 3%, and money 120 trillion to 129 trillion. The global money supply has grown at 4.8% per year over the last 2 years. This analysis from Dylan LeClaire shows the M2 money supply for the 21 largest economies converted into dollars. The world isn't getting 6% richer per year. Fiat currency is diluting at 4.8% per year. By accounting for fiat debasement, we can see the relative gainers and losers in the global asset landscape. Hard assets, Bitcoin plus gold, are gaining share. Fiat assets, bonds plus money, are losing share. So it just kind of breaks it down. Hard assets growing, fiat assets shrinking on a relative basis. So if you take this into account, it's a different conversation. So Bitcoin has grown by 320. It goes on. Change in percentage of total: 323%, gold 63%, art and collectibles 0, equities 4, real estate 2, bonds actually negative 6%, and money negative 4%. Last year, Michael Saylor based his, we've covered this many times on Simply Bitcoin. The episodes that are titled, How Much Bitcoin Do You Need to Retire? We use Michael Saylor's plugin calculator. It's open source. Last year, Michael Saylor based his Bitcoin 24 valuation model on my full potential valuation framework. Here's how Saylor expects each asset category to grow or shrink over the next 20 years. Saylor input his own assumptions to, quote, full potential valuation model. So it kind of breaks it down. From the starting point of Bitcoin being 0.2% of the world's 900 trillion in assets, Saylor expects Bitcoin to grow from 0.2% of global wealth to Bitcoin growing to become 7% of the world's 4,000 trillion in assets. In other words, Saylor expects $13 million per Bitcoin in 2045 to 7% of global wealth in 20 years. I mean, that doesn't sound too crazy if you break it down. Like if you look at the initial chart, right? So it's like Bitcoin's this tiny little speck, tiny little dot. And if you take a look at this one, like that doesn't sound like that. It's not too crazy. Like here it is. That's not like in the grand scheme of things, like real estate is still way bigger. Bonds is still way bigger. Money is still way bigger. Art is still way bigger. And then it's taking into account essentially that Bitcoin will surpass gold. But as Max Kaiser has said many times, why wouldn't Bitcoin surpass gold? It's superior to gold. Has better characteristics. You're able to send it instantaneously anywhere around the world. You're able to essentially take custody of it. Its physical characteristics don't limit your ability to transport it. It's just a superior asset. It actually has absolute scarcity, unlike gold. Anyways, so if you break it down like that, it's not that crazy to think that we're going to see $13 million Bitcoin in 20 years. With this 2025 update, we can see how actual reality is tracking so far versus Saylor's expectations. Overall, we're remarkably aligned. 2023 to 2025 changes in line with Saylor's expected changes to 2045. So it just breaks down the 2023 to 2025 actual, and then Saylor's prediction to 2020 to 2045. So it breaks down the CAGR, and it just breaks down the numbers. So, anyways, pretty cool. Shout out to Jesse. I think this is pretty cool. Or he used to have a screen name, Crosses. Breaks it down. I love this chart because it gives a visualization of the opportunity, right? Like if we truly believe Bitcoin is a superior asset, it's going to continue to grow. And if you take a look at this picture, I just don't think this is unreasonable at all. Anyways, Opti, what are your thoughts on this, man? I love that picture because it's a visualization of Bitcoin's potential.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think Jesse's first point is probably the main point that most people don't understand. Obviously, economics or the traditional financial system is complicated on purpose, so people can't really point to the root problem. While you're looking at global wealth expanding, you know, everyone's like, yeah, we made it to 1 quadrillion or $1,000 trillion of global wealth. Like, we're getting so much wealthier. This is awesome. But when you really look at the plumbing, it's like, no, it just means that the currencies are being debased more. And that's why hard assets or asset prices are going up. It's because only the rich are holding these assets. So if you're just an average everyday person, you are actually getting poorer. And this is why you feel like, yeah, maybe the world is getting more wealthy overall, but my day-to-day life, I'm struggling more than ever. I'm sure you guys have seen all the social media posts of people like basically crying in the car that they can't, you know, buy their groceries or their health insurance or, you know, can barely pay rent. And how are people surviving in this economy, et cetera, et cetera? Well, this is the reason. It's because the currencies we are using are being debased at a rate that is faster than the official inflation numbers. And this is why people are feeling the pain, but they can't pinpoint what the problem is. This is why Bitcoiners do what we do. This is why we are so, you know, all in on Bitcoin, is because this is basically the main problem that we're all facing right now is we don't have a good money. We don't have a good store of value out here unless you're a rich person that can buy, you know, these assets that are incredible price ranges that, you know, are out of the average person's price range. But I think the second part of that thread, which is, I would say, extremely bullish, Nico, would be that last chart you posted. Saylor's prediction to get to a $13 million Bitcoin by what, 2045 or 2049? Go to the last one. That second to last one.
This one?
Yeah. So Saylor's prediction of getting to 2045, a $13 million Bitcoin is based on a CAGR or compounding annual growth rate of 29%. Now, I know Saylor's talked about this, that he expects it to kind of slow down over time. But even if we, you know, are a little more bullish than Saylor's conservative take, if you compare that 120% CAGR for the last 2 years, even a conservative bet of it going to, like, I don't know, half, you know, gets cut in half to 55% or 60%, etc. Like, that's gonna blow past Saylor's conservative predictions. And I know everyone always says, like, oh, actually, I think we've been kind of getting trolled lately because we've been doing a lot of stuff around price predictions because that's what, you know, people like, and it's exciting and it's just fun to kind of joke around about. But when you really look at the numbers, our conservative predictions could be completely blown out of the water. And I know a lot of Bitcoiners like to make conservative predictions so we don't sound too crazy, or so we don't get disappointed, or, you know, we undervalue where we think Bitcoin is going. But if it follows or even gets cut in half its current CAGR, a $13 million per Bitcoin is actually like on the lower end. That could be a bear case of where we are going. And when you look at the math, it's so simple. But I think one of the things I've been kind of wrapping my head around lately is that as much as we try to give people logical reasons, as much as we have these math to point to and to show where we think this is going, most people aren't really guided by logic. They're guided by their emotions. And we're seeing this play out in real time. And so I've actually been going through a lot of threads and kind of thinking through this. And it's like, how do we make people care on an emotional level? Because the math and the logic just doesn't seem to get through people's brains right now. Because when you put out the math out there, obviously to us Bitcoiners are like, yo, how could you not go all in on Bitcoin? It's like where we're going is going to be insane. It's because math only worked on, you know, us out here. Like, if there was a better way of orange pilling people up to this point, then we would have way higher Bitcoin adoption. But the math and the logic and just like a full thought out logical response of why you should be a Bitcoiner doesn't seem to resonate with a lot of people. And therefore it's the emotional connection that people need, which is basically just seeing the price start ripping. So once the price starts ripping, I think we can get back here and be like, yeah, here's the math behind this, and this is why it's going. I mean, personally, when I got into Bitcoin, I didn't know any of this stuff. I just saw the price run, and I was just thinking, I need to go all in on this. And then after the fact, I learned all this stuff, and you're like, oh, this is why I felt the way that I felt. I think a lot of people are going to follow that same playbook where they're just going to FOMO into the price running. And then after the fact, they'll be able to consciously, logically explain their position. But the math is, I think, conservative. I think a lot of our math is conservative. Obviously, the time frames is where we don't know where it's going to play out. But hey, as much as everyone doesn't like the $1 million quote unquote clickbait titles, it is going there. It is an inevitability, as I would like to argue. But hey, we still got a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. I also do want to give a shout out to the Rumble audience. Rumble overtook YouTube for just a little bit, over 600 live viewers on Rumble alone. So shout out to the Rumble audience. Absolutely love you guys. Anyways, before we move on to the news segment, we have tons to cover today. I do want to give a shout out to our merch. It's back in stock. We underestimated how much we should have bought more in the initial batch because this thing sold out so quickly. But yeah, get your Simply Bitcoin merch while supplies last, guys. The hoodie is a fan favorite. It's incredibly comfortable, guys. This isn't drop ship. We buy the inventory beforehand. This is extremely high quality material. This is the type of hoodie that you'll wear every day type of thing until your wife or girlfriend's like, you got to wash it. And then you're like, no, I don't want to wash it because then it's not going to be as comfortable. It's like that type of hoodie, right? And of course, the black shirt I love to wear. The white shirt is really good. The cream shirt, better said. And then, of course, the hats. So head over to simplybitcoin.com. Go to the merch tab. And if you guys want to support the show, check out our latest merch. Anyways, guys, let's get to the news segment. We have tons to talk about. We're going to be right back in just a second. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes self-custody easy and secure. As a Bitcoiner, I care about holding my own private keys, but multi-sig can sometimes get tricky. Casa nails it with a multi-key security. So even if one key gets lost or stolen, your Bitcoin stays safe. And you don't give up custody, meaning no one could access your Bitcoin but you. No seed phrase anxiety, no single point of failure. I've been telling my friends and family about Casa for years. Their UX and UI on their app is by far the best in the industry. Inheritance planning is built in, and they even offer Casa for Business if you're thinking about a Bitcoin treasury. Hit up casa.io today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium. Head over to casa.io.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, CoinKite. If you take your Bitcoin security seriously, you'll need the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market to take self-custody. That's where Cold Card comes in. The Cold Card Q is the most advanced Bitcoin signing device ever made. It's got a full keyboard, larger screen, and NFC support, making air-gap signing easier than ever. It's built for power users who want the ultimate security without sacrificing usability. And if you're looking for a battle-tested, uncompromising cold storage, the Cold Card MK4 is your go-to with PSBT signing, an industrial-grade secure element, and USB-C. It's the perfect blend of security and convenience. Both devices are, of course, 100% Bitcoin only, open source, and built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Secure your Bitcoin the right way with the Cold Card Q and the MK4. Head over to coldcard.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the store.
All right, everybody, we are back, and this is Optimus Fields, and he is holding the Cold Card Q. Guys, this is our daily driver here at Simply Bitcoin. This is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market right now. It's completely open source. It has a transparent back. It has all the options, whether you want to sign via USB, via micro SD, via the NFC support. You can literally do a tap sign or the QR code. You can literally scan it with the QR code. This is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the coldcard.com store. Head over there today. All right, everybody. So let's talk about Michael Saylor's just got to stop, man. Like, he's buying all the Bitcoin, just like we're stacking kernels of corn. He's stacking fields of corn. This is crazy. Obviously, taking advantage of the capital markets, taking advantage of cheap debt, to continue his strategy. I mean, it's in the company's name, is in what he's doing. Strategy, right? And it's no longer MicroStrategy. It's the strategy. And it's the Bitcoin strategy. So Michael Saylor's strategy adds 1,895 Bitcoin, bringing company stack to 555,450 BTC, right? That is a ridiculous amount of Bitcoin. I'm going to ask this question to Opti. Opti, do you think Michael Saylor will reach 1 million Bitcoin?
It looks like he's on that path. Yes.
Yeah. You think he'll be able to do it before number go up?
I mean, I don't know. Is he buying IOUs? Is this paper Bitcoin? You know, on paper, it sounds like yes, he will get to a million.
So it's Zach XBT, which is like kind of like this like chain analysis person on X, and he's like super famous. And he did like kind of like this analysis, like breaking it down and seeing like if Coinbase actually held those coins, and apparently they do. Apparently they are accounted for.
Yeah, Checkmate, he's been saying something very, very similar as well.
So
but I'm just saying, he's buying so much coin. Like, why isn't the price ripping? I guess.
No, I mean,
not that much coin. What's going on here?
I also posted that. I'm so used to saying I tweeted that. I also posted that this morning. I said like, what's going on here? Like, you know, again, this is the most bullish cycle from a news perspective, but from a price action perspective, you know, you're hearing Michael say, look, he's buying more Bitcoin than the daily mine supply. Like, why isn't the price going up? Now, I keep hearing that the reason that the price isn't going up is because you have a lot of OGs that were buying at $100 or $1,000, and you know, they're cashing in because they got great returns. I don't know how much I believe that, but anyways, I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. We're on the verge of breaking 3,000 live viewers. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. And of course, shout out to the Rumble audience today. 600 live viewers on Rumble. We peaked. We're currently at 443 live viewers on Rumble. So shout out to you guys. And of course, shout out to the YouTube audience and the X audience as well. Smash the like button if you guys are enjoying today's show. Anyways, I have a video for you guys, which I find quite interesting that I think is applicable to if you are if you're a millennial or if you are a Zoomer. I think a lot of the questions that you might have are, hey, you know, why is housing so expensive? Like, why am I not able to afford a home the way that my parents were able to, or the way that my grandparents were able to? And actually, Michael Saylor has an explanation of this. And shout out, of course, to the Coin Stories podcast hosted by the talented Natalie Burnell. And I think she was the one that asked Michael Saylor the question. Let's check it out.
I know wealthy people, they own 16 estates on the Eastern Shore, and they live in 2 of them. Like, why do they buy them? They land banking. What does that mean? Well, the guy makes a lot of money every year, and he doesn't want to put it in a savings account, so he goes and he just buys a cool piece of property, and he buys another one. Well, okay, it sounds good, but here's the problem. The guy buys up the beautiful pieces of property, and so you can't afford it.
Right.
And if the rich guy wasn't buying up all the beautiful houses, they would cost half as much. And you could live in a beautiful house. So here's what happens. Some rich dude has 27 houses that are empty. You don't have a beautiful house. You have a family. Your kids, your dog could use the beautiful house. The rich dude doesn't even want the house. He just wants a long-term capital preservation strategy, right? And so that's a perverse incentive and a distorted economy. That's broken. That's broken money. That's because the rich dude is using an estate on the eastern shore of Maryland as a piggy bank.
Yep.
Huh? But the estate doesn't get renovated. The house is falling down. There's a beautiful pool on the water, and you could have a great family picnic there every Sunday, but it's not going to happen because the rich dude has 16 other houses. He just bought that house because he thought it was.
So this is absolutely crazy, and I'm just gonna kind of connect it with the Jesse Myers, thread, so you guys kind of get an idea. So, and this kind of harps into what we've been talking about, what I've actually been saying for a long time, which is you shouldn't have to invest just to maintain your purchasing power. That is due to broken money. So it's not because it, and again, like the class warfare, especially when wealth inequality, is at what it is right now, and the upward mobility is a lot tougher. People like to blame the rich, right? You had AOC wearing a dress basically saying, tax the rich. You have, you have essentially, this class warfare where, like what you hear on MSNBC, which is like, yes, Trump just wants to lower the taxes for the billionaire class and blah, 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 blah. Like you keep hearing that over and over and over again, like as if that was the solution. No, that's not the solution. Like the solution, the fundamental problem is broken money. And when you have broken money, you like essentially destroy the incentive structure of society. And if you're a rich person, you can't just sit in money because you'll lose purchasing power. So what are you forced to do? You're forced to buy equities, which make them very expensive, or you're forced to buy real estate, essentially. And then you create the situation that Michael Saylor was just describing, right? Which is like you have an ultra high net worth individual that owns like 5 or 6 properties, doesn't use them, but is just sitting on them, and it's a great store of value. So you can't really blame him for following their incentives. But what if I told you that you no longer had to essentially buy those properties? You can just buy Bitcoin, have it in self-custody, not have to deal with property tax, not have to deal with maintenance, not have to deal with tenants, and it actually gives you a better return on your investment. What is the long-term consequence of that? All those rich dudes that are holding on to these properties are going to start selling those properties for Bitcoin. The price of those properties are going to go down, and they're going to go closer to their utility value. The reason that Zoomers and millennials can't afford housing these days is because the housing market has completely been Frankensteined by broken money, which causes broken incentives. And you can't blame rich people. You can't blame capitalism. You can blame the money. And this is if you fix the money, you fix the world. Now, here's the good news, right? Because you don't have to wait until, essentially Bitcoin demonetizes real estate. You can start feeling this benefit now if you start living on a Bitcoin standard. If you've been living on a Bitcoin standard, real estate, right? I think Opti, we have a good picture on the Simply Bitcoin X account, right? Of the housing and the car and all that stuff. If you've been saving on a Bitcoin standard, life is already deflationary. And I actually had a really good conversation with Jeff Booth, and Jeff is like already like kind of living in the future. And he's been making the case that essentially because of technological advancements, because of productivity advancements, life should be getting cheaper, not more expensive. But because essentially the money is stealing from everyone, it's being misallocated via inflation, via currency debasement, nobody feels it. Essentially, the wealth gets centralized. The wealth gets, allocated to a small few while everybody else essentially suffers. So Bitcoin really does fix this problem. And you don't have to wait for a politician, or you don't have to wait a decade in order to start feeling the benefits. If you start saving and earning in Bitcoin and just putting a percentage in Bitcoin, put it in self-custody, wait 4 years, wait 8 years. I mean, we did the price speculation in the beginning of the show, right? Like $13 million per coin. So like with 0.1 Bitcoin, right? It's like roughly 10 G's today, you get like $1 million, right? Like, I don't know what $1 million will get you in the year 2045, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. So anyhow, I absolutely loved that, that rant from Michael Saylor, and of course, Natalie doing an incredible job with the interview. But anyways, I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. We just broke 3,000 live viewers between YouTube and X. Appreciate all you. Love you guys. Appreciate it. Smash the like button if you guys are enjoying the show. And I do want to give a shout out to, of course, Rumble. 428 live viewers on Rumble. Anyways, guys, Opti, what's your take on all this, brother? Because we are part of the millennial generation. We are part of the Gen Z. Opti is a millennial, but he's a Gen Zer at heart.
No cap. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find this. I can only find one of them. I can't find the house one, but it was on our Twitter somewhere. But here's the car one. Memes, guys. Look, you guys get a meme. All right, so quit yelling at me. You got your meme fill for the week. I was trying to find the house one on our Twitter, but I can't find it. Anyways, maybe it's just where I am in my life right now. Obviously, as someone that's a millennial and really didn't take its finances very seriously up until, like my mid-20s, maybe I'm not the best one to speak about this, but it does seem like a general trend going around that a lot of millennials are complaining about the fact that they will never be able to achieve the American dream of a white picket fence and a family, et cetera, because things are too expensive. And like I said, maybe it's just where I am currently in my life. I don't even want a house right now. I'm kind of cool with being, much more flexible and being able to go and, not be basically stuck in one jurisdiction, or rather in one city. And I'm just trying to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. But I know I'm kind of the exception here to the rule. But it is kind of the growing case that the millennials and the Gen Zers and whatever's after them, I think they're alpha and beta or whatever the new generation names are. We are statistically, the poorest generations ever. And this is why a lot of times on the show, I am a little critical of the boomers here. They're like the worst generation ever because they just stripped all the wealth away from everyone so that they can live a lavish life. Now, of course, it's not all of the boomers. There's some cool Bitcoin boomers. We love you guys. But personally, I don't really like this moral, ethical debate or argument around people owning homes. It's like, hey, if you have enough money to buy multiple homes, like, more power to you. I'm all for, if you have wealth, to have multiple homes. I think that's okay. I'm not like a lefty AOC type that's like, oh, rich people shouldn't own multiple homes. I'm like, hey, if you have the means, by all means, buy multiple homes. Though I think the main point here is what Saylor was saying in regards to people using homes as a store of value, and this really goes to the heart of the debate here. Is we don't have a good money, and as we always talk about, everyone is now forced to become investors to just survive in the current world that we're living in. And as Bitcoiners like to say, as the meme goes, fix the money, fix the world. As people start to wake up to this idea that, hey, I don't have to store my wealth in a bunch of land or houses. All I really need to do is understand Bitcoin and save in Bitcoin, and I get outsized returns on this. Then yes, the premium on houses, or the use case of buying houses as a means to store your wealth, will start to deplete, and the housing market will go back to basically like its utility value. And obviously that's not going to play out overnight. It's probably going to be a 5-10 year journey here, but I think the point remains the same, is a lot of people, a lot of really wealthy people, and we know the statistics too, of even foreign nations using American real estate to store their value. So it's not just an American phenomenon, it's a global phenomenon. Everyone uses basically real estate to store their value, is because we don't have a good way of storing your value. And of course, this is all caused by fiat currencies, and this is why we're Bitcoiners in the first place. And this is why I think at this point in my life, I just think of, hey, I don't need a house. Like, I can rent, obviously I'm paying off someone's mortgage, but it's working for me. I pay off someone's mortgage. I can live my life how I want to. And hopefully, when I really do want to settle down, I'll be able to buy myself a house and really live the American dream on the Bitcoin standard. I know people have an issue with saying the Bitcoin standard, but living off your Bitcoin, I think, is where we're going. And more people are waking up to yeah. Mexicano. I totally did admit this, that yes, I probably should have made better decisions in my 20s. But hey, there's still time for that. I'm doing pretty well for myself. I'm not like here saying that we should eat the rich or whatever they're saying. I'm like, hey man, if you're wealthy, by all means, do what you want with your money, because that's what I believe. Like, you can't tell me what to do with my money.
But it's the incentive structure that's broken, right? And
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I think this is where like AOC, gets it wrong, where she's like basically like, tax the rich, this is a solution. Oh, there's this like really popular content creator, I forget what his name, but he's like going viral on he's like a trader, like British guy, and he's like, look, like, like the solution, I can't do it,
bro. What's
I
Gary
can't-
Stevenson?
dude, like he's great at making content. Like, I'm not gonna lie, he's good at making content. You look at his videos, I completely disagree with it. Look, this is the and again, there's politicians that make a living out of this. The problem is the money. Look, the number one cause of wealth inequality isn't corporations or rich people buying houses. The number one cause of wealth inequality is currency debasement, which essentially steals the ability for people to move up the social ladder. It's as simple as that. It makes it incredibly difficult. And I'll break it down as to why. It's very, very simple. Most people live paycheck to paycheck, right? So you make your money, you put some of that into rent, you put some of that into expenses, whatever, and you have a little bit left over, right? Most people leave that in cash. If you have a little bit of savings, maybe you put it into Bitcoin. If you're very wealthy, you put that excess capital into assets. So you put it into real estate, you put it into Bitcoin, you put it into equities. And here's the thing. Here's where the game is rigged. When they print money, the price of assets go up. And it's not because the value of them goes up. It's just fiat is dwarfing the whole thing, right? So like it literally steals your ability to save into the future. The number one destroyer of the middle class has not been any of the reasons they've told you. The number one destroyer of the middle class has been currency debasement, has been inflation, has been broken money. That's the number one destroyer of the middle class. Look at the website, what the F happened in 1971. And you tell me if that's a coincidence, bro. Anyways, Bitcoin fixes this. You don't have to wait for an election or a politician. You can start, living a deflationary life today. All you got to do is save and earn in Bitcoin. Anyways, before we move on to the culture segment, I do want to give a shout out to everybody watching the show. 653 people watching live on YouTube, 2,500 people watching live on X, and 400 people watching live on Rumble. If you guys are enjoying today's show, make sure to smash that like button. I'm going to shamelessly plug our merch again. Guys, if you really want to support the show, check out our new merch. It's absolutely awesome. It's very comfy. He wears it every single day. He's wearing the hat right now. He's wearing the Simply Bitcoin hat. It looks fresh. It's clean. It's high quality. If you guys want to support the show, buy yourself some Bitcoin first. But if you do, if you feel so inclined, get yourself a Simply Bitcoin hoodie while supplies last, and it's perfectly priced at $69 and the t-shirt at $42, right? All coincidences. Anyways, guys, we're going to move on to the next segment. Let's hit the culture segment. We have tons to talk about. I don't even know what Opti has prepared. Let's check it out. Here we go. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledin has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally not only have an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledin is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to hodl while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you today. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 0.25% off their first loan by using the link in the video/podcast description. What are you waiting for? Head over to ledin.io today.
All right, guys. Well, I did today's culture in a specific way, so I didn't give my sources away to Nika, so he didn't steal it for the rest of the show. No, I'm kind of trolling.
All right, everybody. Today's culture is...
Oh, dude, rage rating Nico is like the easiest thing to do ever. It's so fun. All right, so I don't know if you guys heard, but Warren Buffett, aka the Oracle from Omaha, is stepping down from Berkshire Hathaway, literally one of the most profitable investment houses, probably, you know, the last, I don't know, many decades. You know, he's older than time, but that's not what we're covering. He did this great clip here, and if you guys remember, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, they're very famous for being anti-Bitcoin, but I find it very interesting that we get this clip coming out from him, and he's literally pinpointing the exact problem that us Bitcoiners talk about, but he will never get to the point of actually embracing Bitcoin. So you do have to kind of read between the lines here, but hey, he sees the problem, but he will never embrace and talk about Bitcoin. So, you know, bear with me here, because it is like you can tell he's getting older. His speech is getting worse, but the signal remains the same. So here we go. One of the most profitable investors over the last many decades is literally
he had a 29% CAGR over his investing career.
Yeah. How long has let's do this quick
29 effing percent, bro. This guy is an absolute, whatever he feels about Bitcoin. Look,
Yeah.
check this out. Warren Buffett's return tally after 60 years.
6 decades.
5,502%. 5,500,000%. 5,500,000%. This guy knows what I mean, listen, look, you can appreciate it, and he's 94 years old. You could appreciate, you know, like obviously what he's done, but what I will say is this, like, this is a quintillionaire. Like, this is someone who's benefited. I'm serious. Like, this
I know.
Who's benefited from the system itself. I think, Opti, what you're trying to say is that in the video, he says that.
Yes, he literally exposes the game. So let me just play this, and I might stop it. That's why I didn't pull it up as a clip, because there's some points that kind of hit. But let's just hear it.
And obviously, we wouldn't want to be owning owning anything that we thought was in a currency that was really going to hell. And that's the big thing
All
we
in on
worry about
dollars.
with the United States currency. I mean, the tendency of a government to want to debase its currency over time there's no system that beats that. You can pick dictators, you can pick representatives, you can do anything, but the people, there will be a push toward weaker currencies, and of course that is, I mentioned very briefly in the annual report that the fiscal policy is what scares me in the United States, because it's made the way it is, and all the motivations are doing a lot of things that can cause trouble with.
Okay, before I move on, what Nico and I were just saying in the beginning, it's the incentive of the fiat system to manipulate and debase the currency. It's almost like it's their job to do this. So it's not who controls the money supply. It's not that we need to get better people to control the money supply. They're literally incentivized to continue to debase the currency. And he, started this off by saying, my whole main investing thesis was basically don't hold a currency that's going to be worse than the US dollar. Okay, but us Bitcoiners are the crazy ones. All right, the real kicker is at the end of this.
With money, but that's not limited to the United States. It's all over the world, and some places it gets out of control regularly. As they know, they devalue at rates that are breathtaking, and that's continued. I mean, and people can study economics, and you can have all kinds of arrangements, but in the end, if you've got people that control the currency, you can issue paper money, and you will, or you can engage in clipping currencies like they used to do centuries ago. Or there will always be people. It's the nature of their job. I'm not singling them out as particularly evil or anything like that. But the natural course of government is to make the currency worth less over time, and that's got important consequences. And it's very hard to build checks and balances into the system to keep that from happening.
Literally saying everything we've been saying as a Bitcoiner, which is interesting because he's been saying Bitcoin is rat poison squared forever. And now on his way out, he's basically like, yeah, it's the government's job to devalue the currencies. I wouldn't hold any currencies, maybe find alternative currencies if that was possible. Obviously, in this context, he's probably talking about like fiat currencies, even though he exposed that everything's worse than the dollar. But this is literally why we're Bitcoiners. Like, Warren Buffett knows the game. What was his return to Nico? 5 million over 60 years.
5,500,000.
29% CAGR. Like, if this doesn't expose the game on his way out of leaving Berkshire Hathaway, I don't know what does. This is literally the game. This is the game that everyone knows is happening. But this is like, what do we say? This is saying the quiet parts out loud. I don't know what more you need to hear from someone that has literally benefited from this position. Also, let's not forget, Berkshire Hathaway has like the biggest cash holdings right now, right before the stock markets and bonds started, imploding. They're just like, yeah, we're going to hold cash here. To me, reading between the lines, he's basically making our Bitcoin thesis or hypothesis or our Bitcoin chill for us, but he will never embrace Bitcoin. But hey, I can't really blame him. He's 94%. He's made his bag. But this, to me, just completely blows the lid off the fiat games. And this is why we're Bitcoiners. So shouts out to Warren Buffett on his way out, just laying the game very plain for everyone to hear. This is great. I love to see this.
Dude, like, I mean, the symbolism there, his last, like, essentially speech before he steps down is admitting that government's natural tendency is to inflate the currency. He stops himself from calling it evil, but he wouldn't have that thought if he didn't fundamentally understand that just because the intention is not evil doesn't mean that the outcome isn't evil. And the outcome is theft. It's theft. That's what it is. It's theft. There's no other way to frame it. There's no other way to describe it. Inflation and currency debasement, I'm getting chills when I'm saying this, is theft. It's theft. Is it like, you say taxes are theft? There's a social contract there. Like, people agreed. I don't know why, but people agreed. They say, okay, income tax is a good idea. Like, it's law. You might disagree, but people agreed on this. People never agreed on the money tax. And the money tax is 100 times more harmful than income tax because it's insidious. You don't see it. And the symbolism there, his last speech, stepping down, $5,500,000% gain over his 60-year career. And his last thing he has to say is, government's nature is to debase the currency, and it's troubling. This is why Bitcoin was invented. Chancer on the brink of the second bailout for banks. And I'm telling you, people like Warren Buffett, look, genius. You can't say the man isn't a genius. You can't say the guy isn't extremely successful. You can't say any of those things. He benefited tremendously from that said system. And now it explains it, why he's calling Bitcoin rat poison squared. Like, it makes total sense now. It's obvious, right? So anyways, that's crazy, dude. That is nuts. I mean, reality is stranger than fiction, bro. Like, that is so fitting. That's the first time I saw that video. I can't believe he said the quiet part out loud. Like, it's so symbolic. On his way out, he's literally making the case for Bitcoin, which is just crazy to me. Anyhow, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's show. That was an amazing culture segment. Opti had it primed and ready to go. Before we leave, guys, I do want to tell you about Bitcoin 2025. Guys, this is going to be the biggest Bitcoin conference of the year. You guys definitely don't want to miss it. It's coming up at the end of the month. You want to get your tickets quickly because the prices do go up. It's going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada. And Las Vegas, Nevada, May 27th through the 29th at the Venetian Hotel, the world's largest Bitcoin event. I'm just going to read some of the speakers. Of course, you have Ross Ulbricht. You have Michael Saylor. I think everyone's going to be very excited to see that one. Michael Saylor, Senator Cynthia Lummis, David Sachs, the White House AI and crypto czar, Bo Hines. Of course, you have Adam Back, you have Lynn Alden, you have Jack Mahlers, you have the Winklevi twins, you have Saifedean, you have Paolo, you have Caitlin Long, and many, many more. Of course, Opti and I, the whole Simply Bitcoin crew is going to be there. We're going to have a booth in the kind of media place, and we're going to try to be doing a show from there or record some content. We'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So, guys, you definitely don't want to miss this. This is going to be an amazing event in Las Vegas, Nevada, the Venetian Hotel. Use promo code SIMPLY. You get 10% off your tickets, and we hope to see you guys in Las Vegas at the end of the month. Until then, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed Monday's Simply Bitcoin episode. I'm your host, Nico. This is my legendary co-host, Optimus Fields. Smash the like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. Go outside, touch some grass, eat some steak, get some sun, and we'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.